their placement information in terms of whether they do not need that, whether they looks like, and we'll give you all the parameters, whether they can be successful in college English and math without taking the co-requisite. Just going straight into that course. And then there will be some students, and we'll tell you about those, who will not be considered ready for that, and they'll be in a transition level until they demonstrate readiness. So, and so the overall college goal, this is the stated goal, is to increase the number. Our system is still lagging behind where we want to be with the number of students who are passing these English 111 and then the Gateway Math, whatever is your first math in your program within the first 2 years of college. And we have improved our success here locally with initiatives through our math and English departments, but statewide we are still certainly far below the goal, with in some areas less than 30% of students completing college math and English within their first 2 years. So we have to do better as a state, and we can. So the things to start to wrap our mind around are that students who have graduated from a high school, any high school in the United States, within the last 10 years, we will be using their GPA as the primary indicator now. Okay, so any high school, anywhere, homeschool, high school, if they have a GPA, we're using that as the primary decision maker, and then there are secondary and tertiary, if needed, indicators. So students will not, most students will not need to take a placement test anymore. A lot of students still will, but a lot of students won't anymore, which saves them, time and effort and potential problems, discouragement in that, and saves the college in that too, with time and effort. So some students, the students who have been out of high school for 10 years or more, will still need to demonstrate placement. And so there is a test that's being tested now at about 5 colleges in the system that should be available to us in the spring. And so at some point we will make a transition from the NC DAP, so you'll stop seeing DAP scores on TSUM and other places where you see test scores, and you'll start seeing RISE scores. It's called the RISE placement test. So we don't have it yet. It hasn't been released to us yet. It's still being tested at these other colleges. But the NC DAP will go away next summer. And so you have in your handout there that date. So you'll stop seeing DAP scores, new DAP scores, sometime in the spring when that gets released to us for implementation. Students who have graduated within 10 years with a 2.8 or higher. So again, any public school, any homeschool, anywhere in the U.S., so we've got to get out of our head that North Carolina thing. Multiple Measures was looking at North Carolina GPAs. We're looking at any GPA, any high school GPA within the last 10 years, 2.8 or higher, overall GPA. And at this point, it's weighted and unweighted. That's going to get resolved eventually. But right now, it's any GPA that we have. And Hillary and her part will go through where to find this GPA. But if it's 2.8 or higher, then the state is considering them college ready for English and math. No co-requisite needed. So college English 111, and then whichever math is appropriate for your program. So 2.8 or higher, college ready. Then there is the middle range of students, and we'll go into detail in this in a little bit later, of students who will place with the co-requisite, with the support, with that support class scheduled in. And then students below a 2.2 are considered not college ready and transitional. So those are students who will study in the transition lab. I should have started off saying that, just a reminder that we are piloting. We volunteered to be part of the pilot. There are, 19 colleges, thank you, Mayor, in the pilot this year. Some started this fall. We decided to start in the spring with many other colleges. And so the state is considering this a pilot year and next year. The required state implementation is the fall of 2020 required. We are trying to get ahead of that. We volunteered, we wanted to be part of this pilot because we have already been doing a form of co-rec remediation, as the state calls it, through our Math 1s and our DRE 099, as I told you at Welcome Back. We've already been doing that for years, and so we felt ready to, get out ahead of this. So our goal is to do our pilot this spring, report results to the state and all that, and we're doing that for this campus, and then our intention is that we'll be able to bring on the whole college, Macon campus and online, hopefully by the summer, and we certainly expect by this coming fall. And so to be a year ahead of that. So it's totally fine to get out ahead of it and not wait till fall of 2020. So that's our intention, is to learn what we need to learn this spring in this pilot, but keeping in mind it is still a pilot, so a few things may change. Some of these details that we're giving today could get tweaked by the state, and we'll have input into that. Students who are currently studying with Amy and Mary, so this is a pilot for our campus classes here, so students who are currently with Amy and Mary, we're going to consider them in progress because they may be partially through DMAs and DREs right now, and so they're going to do co-advising with you for those students, and so they will be doing some pre-registration or some advising day registrations for those students. We'll go into some detail on that later, but we didn't want you thinking, what am I going to do about someone who did 2 DMAs this fall but still needs the rest? We're gonna do some co-advising on that, so you won't have to figure that out. Okay, so the next segment, Mary and first Jen are going to give you some detail about what's going to happen in these co-requisite courses, because this is the new part.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
In regards to your section.
Yeah.
It's a high school GPA, but what if somebody earned a GED? Is that just essentially
There is a
synonymous?
score. Yep. Yeah. There is a cut for that, and they need to add a cut for high set. They're working that out. That's the other, in addition to the GED that we offer. So, yeah. So there are a whole lot of other secondary, tertiary, other ways to place.
Okay, I know it says I'm Amy, but I'm not. I'm Jen. So I wanted to give just an overview of what these co-rec classes and the transition class for English may look like. It's going to look a heck of a lot like what we're already doing. So it was a good segue from Barb, since we already have the DRE 099 that certain students fall into as a co-rec with their English 111. This co-rec is going to be very similar. It's not going to include additional assignments above and beyond what the student is already doing in English 111. It's going to work instead as a support structure. Although it's not technically a lab where the student's just sort of doing their thing and asking questions as they go along. There will be structured instructional units within the co-rec class focusing on ideas that are the ones in italics, the writing process, sentence style and structure, grammar and punctuation. So as the students come to that class, they will have some in-class structure time on those topics, but then they'll use them to apply to what they're already doing in their English 111 classes. So it's a structured time meant to be support for what they're doing in the English 111. So it's almost identical to what we're already doing with the DRE 099. So that's the co-rec class. The English is a little more straightforward than the math, because English is more straightforward than math. Just kidding. So the only question for students as far as English goes is the GPA that student comes to us with will show if they go into the co-rec class or if they go into the transition class. And the term transition class is what we right now think of as a developmental or a pre-rec before they can get to the college level gateway class. So the transition class for those students who have a GPA of 2.2 or lower will look more like an integrated reading and writing class, much like our DRE 098 does right now. So there's going to be, and there's a website if you're interested to see what the NROC English course looks like. The NROC is the repository of online classes, so it's statewide. If a student starts this process elsewhere and comes to us like in the middle of a semester or in the middle of a year, they can bring all the work they're doing because it's all one repository. So they're not going to lose anything that they've been working on. And so this particular class is going to be, as I said, a more integrated sort of reading and writing kind of class, with the hope that when they complete it, they are ready for that College Gateway English 111 course. And so the question for us as advisors really is looking at the GPA, and then if they've been out of high school for more than 10 years, the RISE placement scores, and determining do they need the COREC to support the English 111 or the transition course to prepare for English 111. And so those are the distinguishing factors there. Okay, so I think next is Mary. Pass the baton.
Currently, students are taking an NC DAP test, and they get 6 scores. So you're having to look at 6 different scores in order to decide where you're going to put them. And so DMA 10 through 30 has placed them into Math 110, and that's still a requirement for a lot of our programs. DMA 10 through 50 places them into 143, 152. And then DMA 60 score is placing them into the 171. So that's the structure we have now. So you're having to look at 6 different scores. And so what we're moving to is that same reinforced instruction inside the classroom with resources, guided notes, review of basic skills as they're needed, just-in-time instruction, a close relationship with their instructor of record for their Gateway course. In the pilot, we will not have an online co-requisite in the pilot. Okay, after the pilot, we will look at making some classes online so that they can feed into those online programs. So we're moving from a prerequisite, which has taken them 1, 2, or 3 semesters to get that prerequisite work, into a co-requisite that's taught with the class so that they get the instruction that they need as they need it so that they can support that Gateway class. A savings to the student, it costs them $150 for an online access card for 1 DMA or 6 DMAs. It doesn't matter. They've had to pay $150 to get that access to whatever publisher we're using. And so with the NROC, the school has, the community colleges will buy that, and there won't be a charge to the student. So it will be a support class for their Gateway. I think that's it. And so we're using that same NROC access for the math and for the reading, writing, English instruction. So it will all be with that will stay with that student. So I think Jen said statewide, it's really a nationwide thing. So wherever they use that NROC, they can bring that with them. Okay. The transition math class is still for that lower student, 2.2 and below, that may need more time to get those basic skills. And so that would be the Math 003, which is going to replace all your current prerequisite models. I think that's it. So 2.2, or if they've been out of school for more than 10 years, they'll take the RISE placement test, and then we'll decide where they need to go. But it's more of your underprepared student, 2.2 GPA and lower. Okay. We will not offer a Math 010 or the component for 110 this spring in the pilot. The instructor is going to beef up that class to give them the support in the class. For the pilot, we'll be doing the co-requisite for 143, 152, 171. And the GPAs are between 2.2 and 279. That's the range of students that may need that reinforced instruction with the Gateway class. Okay, I think that's all of me.
So the good news is that this group has worked really hard to think through how can we make this easy for advisors. And one of the things that we're going to do, at least initially in the pilot, and we'll see how it goes and get some feedback, is for students who are currently taking developmental classes, Mary and Amy will work with them and decide what's next for them. Where do they need to go? Are they ready to go into English 111? Or do they need to go into English 111 with the co-rec? Or which math class? And they will talk with the student about their program of study and diagnose with or without the co-rec and so on. They are actually going to do a pre-registration. Mark and Barb and Amy and Mary will enter those first thing on advising day. So on October 30th, they are going to be feverishly entering the math and English assignments for those students. So if a student comes to you on advising day and needs to change the section, or the time doesn't work or something, you at least will know where they need to be, what the proper placement is, and then you just kind of do the drop add sort of thing. So that's one piece of good news. The other, like I said, the other piece of good news is we've tried to simplify where the placement. The state sent us a placement grid that does have various placement options for us. So if you run into a student, Barb's going to mention this later, but if you run into a student who you're not sure how to place for spring, just call Mary or Amy or Barb. So we've tried to not overwhelm you with lots of numbers and what if this and what if that, and tried to do the simplest, the things that we'll see most often. So the first sort of implication for advising, I think, might be that these co-recs do take time. There's some contact time to think about and credit time to think about. So you can see here that all of these,
Those numbers correct?
yes, all of those co-rec, no, they're not. The contacts aren't correct for the math, for the couple of the maths. I don't know how that happened. Because I did proofread this, but we will fix that. We'll fix that and send it out. The contact for the contact and credits, I believe, are correct for the co-recs. So, and in fact, if you want to, maybe we can help with that, kind of fix that, by sharing this spring schedule, if you want to pass these around, so that you can kind of see in a little bit what those might look like. Because that is a consideration if we're trying to get these students to help them be successful in this first semester, or their first attempt at math and English. How do you work in program courses and those sorts of things? So that is one of those implications that you'll need to think about as you're advising. So in terms of who's ready for Gateway, yes.
The point there is,
Yep.
you've made it, but I just want to make sure I'm hearing it, that if a student needs a co-rec for math and a co-rec for English, and they're going to take all of that in the spring, that's a lot more hours than they would have had otherwise, and so not to just, for you as advisors, to just discount that and say like, oh, and you can take 4 program courses, with that, because that would end up being, 20 hours or so, so you just want to.
I think we did the count, and the count is, it can be up to 10 credits, something. It can be depending on which math they take. So it's a lot there. So in terms of who's ready for Gateway coursework, who needs the co-rec and who needs the transitions, again, the thinking is going to be everybody's ready for the co-rec class. Let's look and just double check that. So that's our mindset should go to that middle spot first. And so with that, try to simplify this with sort of a 3-grid approach. On yours, please make a correction. Please make 2 corrections, in fact. Right here in this green section, right here in this green section where it says ACT Math, it should say 20 to 21. So I think you've got some kind of greater than symbol or something there.
Now it says 20.
Oh, you fixed it for today's?
Yeah.
Oh, Oh, look at that. I thought you had printed them all yesterday.
No one's told us about the other one.
Okay, good deal. All right, so great. Your handout's perfect on this one. So, if you are, again, we've mentioned GPA, but again, this is showing some ACT and SAT options, at least for the college ready group here in the purple. You can see that there are ACT scores and SAT scores that they can use for both English and math. For the green group, for that co-rec group, there are no SAT scores because the state is saying we don't have equivalents for those. We're not sure what to use there, so only ACT will work. And then, is that okay, Ms. Todd?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then GPA less than 2.2. And it is possible for a student to be college ready in English and not in math, and vice versa. So we'll keep those kinds of things in mind. Again, primarily GPA is where we're going to go. How many advisors still look at the stack screen? Anybody? Don't do that. Okay. The stack screen includes non-course credits. And we've gone through several iterations of developmental, and there's sort of equivalencies that are there in terms of non-course credits. So don't look at the stack for placement. Again, thinking GPA is where we're going to go. I'll show you that in just a minute. And don't use stack. If you need to go to TSUM to look for an ACT score, you can do that. You can also get to the TSUM page from the X2 advising screen. That X2 advising screen is fabulous because it gets you to all the shortcuts. Now, one shortcut it does not get you to is the GPA shortcut. So, here we go. STIASU stands for institutions attended. That's the only one I remember. The IA is institutions attended. And you type in that mnemonic, and we'll show you what that looks like. So here's my record. I pulled it up, because you're going to have to drill down. So here's the STIASU. This is what the first page of that screen looks like, and it will show any of the institutions that the student attended. And you see that circle I have up there? That's where you're going to have to drill down to see the GPA. But before you drill down, go over 2 columns, and there's an end date. And so that may not be the graduation date if this person attended more than one high school, but that's going to give you a good idea about the graduation date. Mine is out of date. I would have to take a test if I wanted to come in and say, okay. Now this is the second page of the screen. This is not my page. This is another student. So when you drill down, this is what it looks like. And this student went to Smoky Mountain, and you have the start and end dates that are right in here. And so you see the graduation date. And then the high school GPA there is 3.22, and that student is college ready in both fields. So that's what that STIASU screen looks like. You will need to go there first. So just get in the habit of, okay, the new screen to go to, and then you can go to your X2 advising page, and you can see anything else that you need to see from there.
So this student would not take any tests for us.
Correct.
And would not have to have the ACT, although they all take that, but, we would be looking at that.
If the student did have SAT scores or ACT scores that did not place them into college ready, we would ignore those. So we're always going to use, and we've been doing that already, whatever scores will place them into the most ready to go place. So pop quiz, where can you find high school GPA?
STIASU.
That one.
And is it okay to use stack?
No.
You all pass. You are all college ready. Okay, what if you don't see the high school GPA on that screen? Because it could not be there. It is possible because they may have a GED, or maybe they've just started with us and we're still waiting on high school transcripts to come in. What are we going to do?
Call Hillary.
No, but thank you for playing. You can check in on base. If we have it and it's been scanned into on base, it should be on this screen, but it's possible that it might be in on base. So that's one place that you could look. And then you're going to need to call student services. And it's just going to be one of those kind of, be Columbo or Sherlock or whoever your favorite detective is to try to track that one down. But that's where it should be. And let's see.